G'day everyone, it's Robert again from Australian Camping and 4-Wheel Drives. So today I thought we'd have a look at the Mitsubishi Challenger. I bought this back in around about 2012 and we've done a fair bit of work to it. I've got some photographs which we can show you up on the screen there at the moment, and we bought this brand new from Mitsubishi, and we brought it home, and this was our first experience into 4-wheel driving. We really didn't know what we were going to do and how we were going to do it, and so that's when I went looking to see how to learn how to 4-wheel drive, and I joined the Mitsubishi Club, so you can go and have a look at all that information. But today what I really wanted to have a chat was a little bit more about the car, and talk to you a little bit about that, and show you what we've done with it as well over the time period that we've had it. So when we brought it home, we had just the standard tyres on the car, didn't have a lift or anything like that, didn't have any bull bar or winch or anything like that, and since then we've gone and we've added a fair number of items to the vehicle. So one of the things we've put on the vehicle, we've got the Cooper Tmax tyres, a little bit slightly larger tyres than what they have on as standard. We also gave it a lift at the time. The lift I gave it originally, we had it going, and we noticed it sagging a little bit, so I took that into ARB and got them to put some of their suspension on it. So not the Old Man Emu, it's their other brand of suspension. They didn't have the Old Man Emu, unfortunately, for the Challenger. I'll put that information up on the screen there for you, so you can have a look and you can see what type of suspension that we put in the vehicle for you also. One thing we did do is we put the ARB bar on the front of the vehicle, and so we've got the ARB bull bar on it, and we put the winch in here as well. Now I've got the Tmax Winch, and I'll show you some photos of that, and we'll get a bit closer on the video and show you the winch. We did have a Dominator winch at one point in time, and it actually got rusted up and stopped working, so we ended up having to pull that out, and I went looking for a winch which was water resistant, and that's why at the time I decided upon the Tmax winch, because they said to me that it was water resistant. So it doesn't mean it's waterproof, it's water resistant, so that's why I went that brand of winch in that situation. It does have a wireless remote with it also, which is useful, so we'll show you some of that as well. More recently put the underbody protection on the vehicle as well. That's something that my wife hates. She really detests that. So if you've got a lady who likes to get into the vehicles, they're not the best thing for them. But if you're more like me and you like getting out there and don't have to worry about your vehicle when you bottom out on something, they're great. They're really good. These ones don't have the steps on them, and they sort of wrap up around the sides of the vehicle as well. Some of the other things we did, we went and put the light bar on. That's just one of the ones from the 4-wheel drive Super Centre that's sitting up there. It's a bit old now, but it still works. And you might notice, a bit hard to see probably from this, we're going to go and have a closer look at it in a minute. We've got a solar panel that pulls out up there. We've also got the an old Roo Systems awning sitting off the side of it as well. And we put the Snorkel onto the vehicle also. And in the back of the car, which we'll have a look at in a moment, we've got the fridge and some drawers from Drifter as well sitting there also. There's a fair number of things we've got inside the vehicle, so we'll grab the camera. I'm going to get behind the camera and we're going to go for a walk around the vehicle, and I'll show you a little bit more about it. Here we go. Okay, so first of all we'll have a look at the front of the vehicle. Here's the Tmax winch sitting here. So in here is where we put our controller, and we lift this up. This is one of the ARB bars that allows you to lift up, and inside there that's where the winch sits as well. Under the vehicle, if you can just see down here, you'll see the underbody protection we put in it, and in this vehicle we decided to go all the way under the car. So we'll get all the way down here and we can try and see up underneath here, and you'll see it goes down for the full length of the car as well. Got a couple of scratches and dents on it as well, so it's been used. We use that pretty heavily, and up underneath here, which we can have a look at. If you can see up there, that's where we've got the suspension from ARB as well. So that seems to be working pretty well, pretty happy with that. Probably one thing that I would probably suggest if you're looking at this type of vehicle, if I can just get up, is you'll notice here on this side I've pulled off the guard. So you'll see here on the other side the guard's still sitting here. So just here, this guard that sits here. So underneath that, they've got the water bottle that for the windscreen wiping, and that sits underneath that. And so I haven't actually pulled that one off yet. You know, I believe in some vehicles what they do is they actually remove that and they put that somewhere else. And it's something that I would think would be a really good idea because your approach angle, when you're approaching things and you want to get up stuff, that bar can get in the way. So on the other side over here, we've got rid of that, and the approach angle is a lot better. You can get right up close to stuff and climb it that way. So that works really well for us. So we put in these funny looking things. Some people ask me what they are. They're for the kangaroos. They're supposed to make a whistling noise. Do they work? Do they not? I don't know. I haven't hit a kangaroo, so I suppose from that aspect they work. But do they work reliably? No idea. Your guess is as good as mine. I figured they're only like $12 or something like that, so I figured a little bit of insurance, you never know. If it saves the vehicle, well, that's a good thing. So we were off doing a trip one day, and we almost hit a kangaroo and we didn't have those. And so we came back and we put the bull bar on, and we put those little roo things on as well. So we've done a couple of trips since then and haven't hit a kangaroo, and haven't even come close to it. So maybe they're working, I'm not too sure. We did put the Illuminator lights on here, so you'll notice the two lights here on the front, and the big bar just up the top up here. So if you can see that one up the top up there. So we put the big bar up top up there. She's getting a bit old now, and wouldn't mind maybe replacing that. Perhaps the paint's starting to peel off that one, so it would be a good idea. You will notice just sitting underneath here, that is actually a solar panel. And we've got a little cable here which we pull this guy out, and then we just grab these little hooks on either side, and the whole thing slides out forward. The reason we've got this little guy here that fits in is so that when you're driving, you don't have to worry about it accidentally popping out on you. So that's why we put that there. And yeah, so that all just comes in. We've got some joiners sitting up here, and that joins in. And what it actually does is up the top of the vehicle, if I can just show you, we've got another solar panel just sitting up on top of the roof. And so we join those two solar panels together to help give us some charge, you know, when we're not driving. We added the Safari Snorkel, so that's sitting on the side of the vehicle over here, and we put that over there. For water crossings, we've done a couple of water crossings. Vehicle's never had an issue with it. It's gone through the water crossings without any problems at all, so been rather happy with that. And then up top up here we've got the Rhino-Rack shovel holder and the winch. Sorry, the high lift jack, holder mount. And so they're sitting up top up there, and we use them when we need to. At this point in time, I've got them actually everything taken off at the moment, because that's actually sitting over on my Ranger, and so we've got it like that at the present time. You might notice up the top up here, there's a camera sitting up there, and that camera, we'll show you that in a moment, that's inside the vehicle. So the vehicle's actually got two reversing cameras. You might think, why? It's got one sitting up there, and it's got another one which is just sitting down here, right there in front of us. So that one there is great for when you're reversing. You've got to put the tow bar on, and you're trying to get onto the trailer, and that's perfect for lining it up. Really does save your day. That's a lot easier, so we use that. We did replace, you'll see over the side over here, got the connection obviously for the trailer lights and that, and over here we've got two Anderson plugs, and that's for running things that we need to run in our camper trailers. Just provides another method of charging them essentially, which we found useful. We've got two of them sitting there. Really only need one. You can actually use one if you wanted to add in a solar panel, but we don't do that in our situation here. So now let's have a look inside the back of the vehicle. So this is the back of the vehicle. You'll see we've got the drifter drawers sitting in there. They've been really good. I'll show you how they work. So you'll see over here on the side, got these little things that pop off, and inside there we just chuck in all our recovery equipment down the side down there, and this just fits back over it nice and neatly when we don't need it. And same on the other side. Over here we've got the fire extinguisher. Always make sure you've got a fire extinguisher, anything to have. And down underneath there we also stick some more of our recovery gear as well. So the thing I like about the drifter drawers, they've got this table, and that gets able to be pulled out. And in our situation, the way we've got it, we've actually bought a slightly larger fridge, and we didn't really think about it at the time. But what some people actually do is they get a slightly smaller fridge, and they get a smaller MSA mount. And what that allows them to do is you can actually pull the fridge out at the same time you get the table out, and that gives you the advantage of being able to put your stuff on the table as you've got the kitchen open, the refrigerator open. So yeah, now these guys here, I'll go and grab the tripod and I'll show you how they set up. One tick. Okay, so this is how we set them up. The whole thing just pulls straight out, and you'll see underneath here they've got the legs, and they just fold out like so. They've got little adjustments you can put on them as well, and you can put that down on the ground. Obviously we'd have that a little bit higher most of the time, but that's one of the advantages of using this setup. It gives you a table that you can utilise, or if you want to use it as a bench, put it away. Quite simply, you just push that in, bring your legs back in. Same on the other side, push that in, legs back in. And you'll see on this side here it's got a little clip, and that little clip hooks in the back in there so it doesn't slide out on you. So you grab that, put that back in here, use a little handle to push that in all the way, and it locks in place. So your drawers, they're on like Teflon sliders, so the whole thing pulls out and allows you to store all your gear in that. We'll show you all that in a moment. And same thing for the other side, another drawer. We use this as a big drawer. We use this for storing all our food items and that type of stuff as well. So we'll show you how all that works. I'll bring the camera over and we'll have a closer look at it. Okay guys, let's have a look at the drawers. They just pull out. So these are on Teflon sliders. So you'll notice one thing that's different between these drawers and other drawers is because they're on Teflon sliders, they're really easy to open and close, and they don't have that drawer mechanism that a lot of the other ones do that takes up extra space. These ones just simply open like this. You want to close it, simple as that, so really easy. So what we use them for, you'll see in the back here we've got some bags that we got from Drifter, and we actually use this for putting in all our recovery gear. So we put in all our tools and you know, the stuff for your winches and your blocks and all that, they're all sitting in there. So we use all that stuff in there, and I put those into those bags, so it's just easy to access if we need to. Put obviously, you know, a first aid kit in here as well, and other things you need, like, you know, obviously when you're towing stuff you need that as well, don't you, hey? Plus we also put in some of our fiber fix. I don't know if you've ever heard of that stuff. If you haven't, go and do a YouTube video. You'll find a really funny video of a guy talking about fiber fix. It's an interesting product. Essentially it's designed to wrap around stuff that you've broken, and it repairs it. So it works quite well. We keep a couple of those in the vehicle just in case, you never know, hey, when you might need it. And we also use our ARB thing for inflating our tyres. We've got that sitting in there as well, and keep the hoses in the vehicle at the same time as well. So yeah, so that's what we use that for. So that's that side. And generally what we do is we keep an extra bag in here. But what I've done is since I've got the Ranger, I've nicked one of these bags and I've stuck it in the Ranger behind the seat, so I can keep some of the tools in there. These bags are really good bags, because I had a chat with the guys at Drifter and I got them to make up some bags which were a little bit smaller than what they standard make, and I wanted them certain sizes, and so they went and made those up for me, and I've been really appreciative. They've done a really good job of that, so it's been really good. So in the other side, This is where we tend to chuck all our food and whatnot, you'll see. So we have a cooler bags. Something we do is we keep a couple of nice soft cloths, and the reason we have these soft cloths for is because when our fridge starts to get a little bit lower with all the food in it, we chuck those in on top so everything doesn't bounce around. So I find that quite useful. Obviously you've got to have your beer coolers, so we keep them in there also. Sorry, we're on a main road here, so we get a bit of traffic as well. So yeah, and we also put our witches hats, so keep those in case you have a breakdown. You need some witches hats just so people know where you are. And obviously stuck our umbrella and that in there as well. So that's that. I'll show you how this part works, our fridge. So it's on the slide. It's got a little lock here that locks it from being able to be moved out, and so you can't get it out even if you unlock it. You turn that lock, grab it here and pull the handle, whole thing comes forward, and then pop this down like so, and this goes like that, and then that gives you access to your fridge, so you can get into your fridge that way as well. So something that we do, and I'll show you this, you might find this a useful little thing you haven't thought about before. So we use these little hippos, little hippo containers, and they're a moisture absorber. And so what we do is we leave that in the fridge, and after you've been camping, it absorbs all the moisture in your fridge and you don't get any mold and whatnot growing in there, some of that funky stuff. I've seen a number of videos of people looking in the fridge afterwards, and yeah, the mold in there isn't crash hot. Other thing we got from Drifter as well, they're making these wooden boards. I noticed they're making some steel boards now, and we got one of those wooden boards to put it in. Originally we didn't have it in the vehicle, and what we were finding was you'd load this side up and it ended up pushing against the fridge and you couldn't get the fridge out. So we put that in there, and that stops everything sliding over and hitting the fridge. Now you might be wondering what we're doing battery wise. I'll show you where one of the batteries is, and I'll talk about the other one. I might show you some photographs perhaps of the batteries that we installed. So I've got one of our relatives who was kind enough to give me a hand to make up a frame, and it's actually sitting in behind in here in the panel, and we mounted one of the batteries sitting in there. We put a CTEC controller in there, so we run the wiring from the battery at the front through the CTEC controller. The CTEC controller then goes and tops up this battery, and there's another battery over here as well, which we'll show you in just a moment. It's sitting right behind this fridge, and that gives us roughly around about 200 amp hours, roughly, not exactly. The batteries in the vehicle are probably around about 2 years old now, so we'll have to see how they go. Not too sure how they're going to go long term. We'll have to give that a go, and we'll soon find out, won't we, how they go long term as well. So I might show you some stuff inside the vehicle, and we'll go and have a look at that other battery too, so you can see where it's stored also. Alright, then here we go. Before we move, I should show you something else. We've got this little light switch down here, and when we turn that on, there's actually a set of lights right up on the rear of the tailgate here that actually come on. I'll show you them now. I'll just move the camera. Just up there, you'll see these lights, and so whenever you flick this switch, which I'll go flick that now, they come on and off, and so I just wired those through. I found that quite useful. When you're out camping, you know, you always need somewhere to be able to see what you're doing at night time. So we put them in, and then up the top up there, you'll see, just up there, you'll see another camera. Probably a bit camera happy, aren't I? Hey, that camera is actually for recording when we're driving. So there's a camera sitting at the front of the vehicle all the way down there, which we'll have a look at shortly, and that one records 24/7 when you're driving, and this one here looks at out the back window and records as well. So some of the things, I suppose I'm a bit of a gadget person, I love my gadgets, and yeah, so I'll put my hands up, I'm guilty of that, and yeah. So let's have a look inside the vehicle now, shall we? Alright, so we're in the vehicle now, and I'll show you a little bit about the insides of the vehicle, what we've done in here. Most of it's pretty standard, although there are a couple of things which we've moved around. You might be noticing a couple of things as we're looking here already. Down here we've actually got our lockers. So by default the Challenger doesn't have any lockers in it, and so what we did is we put the front and rear lockers in it. And the way it actually works on this, ARB installed it for us, and essentially what happens is we'll start the engine. There we go. So you put your center one on, which is your compressor. You'll hear the compressor come on. There you go, so your compressor's on. Then you can put your rear locker on, and then you put your front locker on after that, okay? Generally, most of the time, you're not going to use your front locker. If it's really slippery, that's probably about the only time you really do it. You're sliding around the front of your vehicle, that's probably when you put it on. You don't really want to have your front locker on because if you're trying to turn and it's too grippy, you could do some damage, so you don't really want that one. The back one on is a little bit easier because you're not turning on that vehicle on the back as much. It just seems to be pushing most of the time. So that's how I understand it, and that's how I use them. Obviously, make sure you turn your locker off when you don't need it, and turn your air compressor off as well. Hey, so we put down here a little place for our cigarette lighter socket. So we use that for running equipment in the vehicle. So we push that one in. That one sets our camera, our little vision drive camera system that we run up here, and so that one's got the camera at the front and the camera at the rear. So it does, when you're driving, actually records from both cameras at the same time as well. Up the top up here, you can just go get these systems. We went and purchased this from JCar Electronics, if I remember right. And essentially that's the camera which we can see out the back with. Now, because we've actually got the fridge there, it actually makes it quite difficult to see out the back of the vehicle quite clearly. And so what we did is we put in a little camera there, and it just makes it easier. So I've got a young daughter, and she's learning to drive, and she's using this vehicle to learn how to drive. And we'll just turn the car off. So when she's learned to drive, we make sure that she doesn't use that camera. She needs to look at the back when she's learning. So sorry, just hearing the vision drive having a yap to us and talking and telling us that it's on, it's recording. Yeah, so what we do in those situations is you can turn this little light on down the bottom down here. This is rear camera. We'll show you a close-up of all those as well. And up here, you just turn the camera on, and what that'll do is it hooks the camera up, and you can see out the back as well. So what I'll do, I'll bring the camera over, and we'll have a closer look at that also. So while we're talking here, you can see exactly what we're talking about also. We have a couple of other buttons down here as well. So this one here says rear camera, and so that's when before we had a look at the camera, which is down near the tow bar. We flick that button on, and it changes the display up here, and we can actually see straight out over the tow bar. So when you're reversing something onto the tow bar, great for that. Just hit that button, and you can see straight out the back and see what's coming up on your tow bar. Perfect, because you can see the tow bar straight in this. So same thing. We'll show you some video footage of that also. So we have other switches here as well. This one here is for an LED light bar. That's the bar which is on the roof. Driving lights, which are on the front. Now both of those are hooked up through the high beam switch as well. So generally you can just have your normal high beams on if you want to. You might be driving, you might just want to have your driving lights on, so when you flick the high beams, the driving lights come on as well. Or you might have the light bar and you might have them all on. That's great if you're out in the bush, you know. Obviously the light bar is really for throwing light out on the side, and the driving lights are for throwing it out distance wise. They're pretty good. I'm pretty happy with them. I haven't had any issues with them or anything like that. We've got our fog lights on here as well. The little lights down the front down there, and we have this auxiliary fan light as well. Now the auxiliary fan light, what that switch actually does is, we had a couple of issues with the Challenger that we noticed anyway in this particular version of the vehicle. It's an automatic, and when we're towing things and we're going up hills, we noticed that the auto transmission temperature does climb in the vehicle. Something that you need to keep an eye on when you're using a vehicle like this. The way we actually found it was we were over at Fraser Island, and we were doing some driving over there. And one day when we were coming back home, and the vehicle just suddenly dropped down a gear by itself. We didn't do anything to it, it just dropped down a gear all by itself. And we thought, oh, that's a bit unusual. And so we flicked it into neutral and flicked it back into drive, and it was driving again happy for another 4 or 5 minutes, then bang, straight back down to a lower gear. And what we ended up doing is we drove through some water, and it stopped it. And I thought, that's interesting, you know, the heat has obviously been dissipated as we went through that water. and it stopped it from doing it. So what we've done in the meantime to overcome that, we replaced the radiator, auto transmission fluid radiator at the front to a slightly larger model. It didn't really make a lot of difference for us in our situation. Put a little fan on, yeah, not the best. One thing we did do is we've mounted a switch over here. It's called a lockup control. Now there's a company online that sells lockup controls, and we did find that actually worked for us. What the lockup control, I don't know that I understand it in a lot of detail, and I'm sure if you go to the website they'll talk a little bit more about it, but I understand it's to do with the automatic transmission, and where they both parts meet and they're both sliding each other, they can generate a fair bit of heat, and that's where that heat comes from. And when you put the lockup control, it joins them together, is my understanding, and they don't slide, and so the temperature drops down. And so what we do to actually monitor that, I'll just turn the car on for a moment. You see up top up here, and I'll show you in a moment, we've got a scan gauge. Now that scan gauge monitors the auto transmission temperature of the vehicle. So we've got sitting up here the auto transmission fluid, the coolant water temperature, how much fuel we're using per hour, and the voltage of the battery. Now you might notice that the battery voltage on this vehicle at the moment is quite low. We have to replace the battery in this vehicle around about every year and a half, we find. It seems to like using the batteries. We've tried to make sure we've got everything disconnected when we're not using the vehicle, and so it's something that we have noticed ourselves. We also have over here, we've got the UHF radio, so that's the switch for our UHF radio that we use there also, and we just put the handset up top up here. We keep the handset, that's actually all just sitting inside this little area inside here, so I'll just get all my gear. So yeah, so we have the UHF radio just sitting there, and we just generally just hook that up top up there, and we use it that way. It's one of the unit end radios, not too bad. It's been a good little radio, I think. Haven't had much of an issue with it. Seems to work reliably, and yeah, so we use that. And so when we get the radio on, we just flick it on and turn that, and that turns it off. So most of the time it's sitting there out of the way. Other things we've got in here as well, we've got obviously the controllers for the brakes when we're towing stuff as well. It's got a little manual override switch there as well, and the plug and go. Plug and go is essentially what it is. It's an accelerator adjuster, so it just adjusts your accelerator pedal, and it changes the revs on the vehicle. So essentially, if you want to get more power straight away, you can put it up the plus side, you can go up to 3 bars, and that gives you a better takeoff. And you can turn it off as well, so if you don't want to use it. It's been a good little product. We did have one issue with it at one point in time, where for some reason the vehicle would just stop and bring up an error light on the engine bay, and I found by disconnecting it, the error message went away. So had a chat with the guys at Plug and Go. They were really good. They sent us a replacement unit, so no issues there, guys. They seem to be a good little product, and we haven't had any problems ever since, so it's been good. I think that's the bulk of what we've done in the vehicle. We'll show you the battery in the back in here as well, and I'll get some screenshots we'll show you inside the vehicle. Then what we'll do is we'll go and have a look in the engine bay. There's a couple of things we've done inside there also. So here we go. So something I forgot to mention to you is this little EnerDrive device you might see sitting here. So what this is designed for, it actually connects to the batteries which are in the rear of the vehicle. So there's 2 extra batteries. They're designed for running the fridge. And what you'll see in here, that little bar going up down the bottom down there, that just indicates that it's charging. It shows you the current which is going in, which is not a lot, only like 1 amp, so not a lot of current going into it. Over here we can see the voltage that's going in, so it's 14.3 volts. Pretty much indicates to us that it's fully charged, and yeah, you can see how many amp hours have gone in and out of the battery. This over here shows the percentage how charged the batteries are. One thing I have noticed with it, every so often I do need to reset it. It just seems to indicate there's more coming out of it than there actually is. So you do need to go through and just manually synchronize it every so often. That's something that I've found anyway. So yeah, they're just hooked up to the 2 batteries in the back. So this is behind the fridge, and there's one of the batteries I was telling you about. So we use that battery to help run the fridge as well. You'll notice down the back down here, just under the seat down here, we put all our recovery cables and that type of stuff. If we ever need a flat battery, we use those cables as well. And yeah, that just sits in there behind the seat. And just sitting just down here, that's where we plug it into. So we've got the Waco charging unit, and we've got that on so that it's on all the time pretty much, and that will then run the fridge. So that's what we do, guys, to help run our fridge in the Challenger. Okay, so this is the engine bay of the Challenger. It's a little 2.4 litre, I believe, common rail diesel. Seems to tow not too bad. Driving around's great. No real issue with the engine. Seems to go pretty good for everything that we needed to do anyway. It's probably, I do know sometimes going up hills, that's probably the main issue with this vehicle, I find. When you're going up hills and you're towing stuff, that's probably when she struggles a bit, I reckon. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why we've gone over here to our wild track, which we're going to get onto that sometime soon. We'll sit down and have a yap with you about that also. But what we've done in here, we've got a couple of things going on. You'll see down here, there's the ARB air compressor just sitting there for us. So that does all our onboard air. When we need to do up our tyres, plug it in through here, and we can do up all our tyres that way as well. We've had to replace the battery a couple of times. I noticed the vehicle's starting to get a bit older again and getting time to replace the battery again. This one here it's a silver battery, and it seems to have gone pretty well. I've been pretty happy with it. We don't use the vehicle that often, and it seems to be going fine for us. You'll notice sitting down here we've stuck a fuse box, and that fuse box is where all the wiring goes into. We had cables going all over the place, and we took it over to some of the guys, and they gave us a hand to rewire it, and they put a nice little fuse box in there for us where all our cabling comes out. The only downside, guys, if you ever get someone to do wiring for you, make sure they label it. Makes it a lot easier to find stuff later on. It's probably the only downside I'd suggest that they did with the wiring, didn't actually label it for us. So this little guy here is essentially supposed to tell the vehicle that's running at a really cold temperature, so it doesn't recycle that air in through the turbo. So that's how it's supposed to work. I'm not an expert on these things, but this little guy here just plugs in. So your existing cable, that's your existing plug, which generally goes in up the top up there. You pull this out, put this in, and it does it. I believe you can do it with a resistor as well if you wanted to, but we haven't worried about that. So I think that's the bulk of it, of the vehicle. Not a lot much else to it. There's obviously a stack of cabling you can see in here where we've done things in the past, we've modified things, so yeah. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's been good to show you guys around the vehicle. This is my Mitsubishi Challenger, and yeah, it's been a good car, good and reliable, mate. So thumbs up. I'd recommend anybody, if you want to look at a second-hand vehicle, they've been a good little car. Great one to start off with, hey. If you want to start off in four-wheel driving, it's a perfect vehicle for somebody like that, because they weren't real expensive, and yeah, they give you the opportunity to get out there and try things, and you can add things on, you know, as you go. And they've got a good range of accessories that you can add on these vehicles, and it's one of the things that I liked about it, how you can go and add all these other accessories onto the vehicle. It was quite handy, and yeah. So that's about it for this episode, and I hope to see you again next episode.